everybody to our second Over the Glass series. Lisa and I wanted to create a forum where we bring in local experts to talk about everything to kind of balance our lives. And so this could involve finances, mental health, relationships. We find that a lot of people are stressed out and we're always too busy, too committed, and oftentimes it helps to just step back and relax a little bit. So we all live very hectic lives, but we want to create this forum where people can talk about, our minds and spirituality and health and fitness and relationships and things like that. So tonight we've got Dr. Devin Callahan, who's a clinical psychologist and the founder of Balance, which is the Center for Mental Health and Wellness right here in Rancho Bernardo. We're fortunate to have Dr. Devin here to tell us about mindfulness. So his presentation tonight is called Fully Present, the Science and Art and Practice of Mindfulness. So thank you for joining us, Devin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So it's really a pleasure for me to be here. I am a local psychologist, born and raised in San Diego, went to Mount Carmel High School, and I'm married to my very best friend, and we live right around the corner with 3 beautiful daughters, and their beautiful daughters were our babysitters, and so we are like family to Lisa and Darius, and they are a true inspiration because, we both have twins, so I have to ask them lots of questions about how to survive, and they've done a fantastic job. So I'm really excited to talk about mindfulness, and I think sharing this over a glass of wine is fantastic, and it's a really good way to do mindfulness, and I'm actually going to use wine in the talk today. I think basically, very much like you said, I think you said it really well. I find the same thing in my line of work, that people just experience extreme amounts of stress, and that our lives are so busy that just being able to take a moment to stop and just be present with ourselves, really is an art and a science, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that today.
So there's all this hype about mindfulness, and people think it's a new thing, where it's actually pretty old. But what exactly is mindfulness?
It's a good question, and really it's defined a number of different ways. So I'm going to define it, and then you can look it up or Google it on your phone right now and probably even find a different definition. But specifically for the purposes of what I'm talking about, because I did look up some research, it's a doctor thing. I'm defining it as a psychological state of moment-to-moment awareness. So it's promoting, self-regulation and self-awareness without judgment.
Okay. So, why should we practice mindfulness? Is there any benefit or anything like that?
What's interesting is we're now studying this, and you can imagine, based on that definition, it can be hard to study, but what we typically will study is things like mindful meditation, or people that are practicing it, or people that even took which I did. I took an 8-week course on mindfulness, and then they'll study what the person's, how they're doing before and after. And so these are some of the results that we're finding. We're finding that people are having an improved memory, that people have improved immune systems, so more antibody production, improved brain function, specifically neural function related to emotions or lowered cortisol levels. There's even some research indicating that our brain cells are more protected against aging if we're doing things like regular meditation and mindfulness practices.
Wow, that sounds pretty exciting. So there's I just pick up a book and there's one way to do mindfulness, right?
Right. That's the thing, is that there's a lot of different ways.
There's lots of different ways.
And the other thing that's interesting too is there's psychological effects as well. We're seeing, so I took a stress reduction mindfulness class, for example, and it's a lot of work to work on your stress. It really is. But there's a real reduction in stress. We're seeing that people's anxiety levels go down, that less rumination, able to regulate your emotions better, less reactivity, more flexibility, better relationship satisfaction.
Did you have a handout or something? Did you want to share that with us?
I do have a handout up there on the shorter table. Sorry, Lisa.
Okay.
So if y'all want to reference it.
Do you want to go over any of those, or do you need that list?
No.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay.
Thanks for bearing with us. We're going to go over it anyway.
There will be a quiz at the end, so pay attention, be mindful. Yes, please, thank you. Okay. So what are you going to tell us?
So really one of the things that was helpful to me is learning about like attitudes that I can take, because so that's one of the things about my work is I'm really into positive psychology. So simply put, you change the way you think, it's going to change the way you feel and change the way you behave. And there's a lot of research out there that this has a big impact on things like stress and anxiety and depression and relationship health and things like that. And I'm actually an expert in working with relationships, working with families. I work with the school system around here, and I'm a provider for the UC system too, so I'm working a lot with college students and a lot of students and stuff like that. We're in these like high pressure positions, not that the people that are working around here aren't in high pressure positions as well. So what we find is that, this kind of practice, this positive psychology, knowing what to do, right? So you may or may not know, but when you study psychology, a lot of it is like, don't do this, don't do that, this is bad, this is a diagnosis, this is a disorder. So for me, I was really interested in like, wait, what works? What's healthy? What does healthy look like? It's tough to think about that. So these are some, on your handout, you have these like attitudes or ways to approach it. And again, this is going to lead into drinking a glass of wine, so pay attention, it's super important. The first thing is beginner's mind. And I have small children, so I liken it to, and maybe all of us have had a moment, maybe it's with like a puppy or with a small child, and you kind of see this, maybe you're even in a stressful situation and they say something like, gee, how do you think they got all those colors on that painting? And they just notice this detail, and they just kind of catch it. My story is about my daughter Amelia. We were in New York, we're in this train station, it was really stressful. And the gentleman across from us, he looked, like kind of intense and kind of in his own world, and she goes, are you a Bulls fan? And it was the kind of guy that you may not say hi to, And she says, are you a Bulls fan? And he goes, what? She goes, you're wearing a Bulls hat. Now mind you, she's 6 at this time. She's 6. And he goes, oh yeah, I like the way it looks on my head. And she goes, yeah, you look good in red. What's your name? And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And I just kept going. Well, the funniest thing is that she got to know, she got to talking to him. He carried some of our bags, helped us get on the train. I mean, it was a little stressful for us. There's 5 of us, one of the bags open typically, And so he helped us get on the train, and he stood there, and I said, sir, don't miss your train, He's like, no, Amelia's my buddy. I gotta make sure we get on this train. Just a little bit. I just kind of reminded me of this, like, as a beginner, you're not thinking about some of those other things. Now, of course, there's times that can be dangerous, but in this case, we're going to use this as an idea of stress relief. Non-judgmental. One of the things that we obviously see, well, I see in my work, but I think a lot of us probably know, is we can judge ourselves. We can be our own worst critic, and so this kind of idea of catching that, and remember now that this whole kind of practice is just being aware, just even noticing, not even judging the fact that I'm judging. We can do that, can't we? And again, I guess I just led into the next one, which is just acknowledging it. Just kind of making a mental note. I'm doing that. I guess non-striking is basically like, just this idea of there's no grasping or aversion to change or movement away from whatever arises in the moment. And just kind of not trying to be anywhere other than where you are right now. We can do that in communication. We can think about what we're about to say when somebody else is talking. Researchers indicate that we hear about 60% of what the person's communicating to us, because about that far in, we start thinking about what we're about to say. And so just imagine that. I like to think what I have to say is important. I hope you listen to all of it. Well, a lot of folks will do that. All of us do, actually. I can't say that word. Can you say that? Great.
I don't
That's
know.
why you're here. Anyway, just kind of allowing you to be with the change and have greater insight and compassion towards yourself. That's a whole other topic, actually, which is like compassion and leading with compassion, whether it's trying to be caring and understanding to those around you, but of course self-compassion is even one of the hardest things to accomplish. So that's something that we can kind of strive for. This idea of letting be, this is where you talk about, this is very much an Eastern philosophy. A lot of these concepts, it's just, just don't judge it. Especially when we're doing something like meditation. Thoughts or stresses will get in our mindset. The Western way is to kind of block things out when we're trying to meditate. And even if you try it, if you feel like trying this, put your hands up and just try to block it out. It takes energy. Whereas the Eastern philosophies, you just kind of take that and let it flow out of your awareness. And then you just kind of focus on what you're meditating about. Self-reliance, this is another topic that's really interesting too, but also useful for mindfulness. Self-reliance, if any of you have kids, it's a number one way to, I call it the antidepressant, anti-anxiety. When you become self-reliant, you can trust in yourself, you can believe in yourself. I think that's really important. And then again, back to self-compassion. Loving yourself as you are, accepting yourself, your strengths and your weaknesses, your good and your bad.
Wow. So this is a lot of different areas. Like, can you get us started with something, like an example or something?
Yes. So everyone have their wine. So we're going to use Darius as the wine master. Okay. Do you need a refill?
Yeah, we're okay. And this one.
So you can still participate actually, even if you have an empty. So Darius, walk us through. If somebody walks up to the bar and they say, "How do I drink wine?" What's the first step that you'd recommend?
Well, we get two types of people in here generally. One comes in because they bring a friend and they're interested in the conversation. And I could talk to them or try to talk to them about wine. They're just not interested. Their mind is elsewhere. And then I get other people in who are really interested in wine. They want to understand what they're doing. So they're kind of part of the moment, right? And those people I love to talk to because you can really engage them. And I learn a lot from them. Hopefully they learn something from me. But the first thing is, what's the color? What's the color? Pick up the wine, look at it.
And this is where you can use this mindfulness part of beginner's eyes. Right? You can imagine that you've never had a glass of wine before. And it's like, what is this substance in here? Right? So this is if you can take this in a playful way, you can kind of have fun with it.
Right.
We're going to use all of our senses to experience this as if we're experiencing it the first time. And just be, like you said, right, very much in the moment.
Yeah. So, you're looking at it, and what you'll notice by looking at it, if you never pay attention to this, you'll never notice, wine looks different from variety to variety, from year to year, from style to style. It all looks different. Does it look pretty? Does it look ugly? Does it look, but, be aware of it. After that, kind of the next step is, I want to drink this. So the next thing people usually do, what do you do with that container that's been in the back of the fridge for a month, right? You sniff it, right? Because that's our second line of defense, right? Does it look okay? Okay, it's okay. Sniff it. What does it smell like? Does it smell good? Does it smell bad? Does it smell pleasant? Does it smell off? Does it remind me of something? And so you're kind of, now you're engaged in this wine.
You can even, to enhance, we know this too, to enhance one sense, we can close our eyes and even just take that moment to take a breath in, right?
Now if you're busy, thinking about today's events or the things you got to do tomorrow or, the argument you had with somebody, you're not gonna be there. You're not gonna be with the glass. You're not gonna understand it. And I often are amazed by these sommeliers, how they can do what they do. And they have trained themselves to remember everything. Where they were, what they did, what it smelled like, what it looked like. All the different facts about it. And because that's what, they're very mindful of what they're doing. So does it pass the sniff test?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's engage the next sense, right? Is taste, right? And what you'll notice is there's a front taste. As it first hits your palate, you'll taste something. And now after a couple seconds, it's changing, right? You may begin to salivate or to dry out. And then you swallow and you're going to get different sensations. So all these things are going on, all at the same time. So did I do it? Was I mindful?
You did, and like Darius said, this is just a really simple way to be mindful, right? And it's a simple way. I mean, just if we think about in our lives too, taking something like this as a practice, and I want to honor everybody being here today too. Just think about the idea of like, we're going to take a moment to learn something to help better ourselves. Just what does that do? What's that mean? Because I'm a big believer in that kind of idea too, where you make a small change in your life. One of the things I'll challenge a lot of the people I work with is I say, okay, you come to see me once a week or every 2 weeks. What if you made one change every week? Just one change. It doesn't even need to be miraculous, just one change. That's 52 changes in a year.
That's a lot of change.
That's a lot of change.
Yeah.
By the way, just as a fun aside, if you feel like it, if you feel like writing down some goals at the beginning of the year and then reviewing them at the end, you would be amazed how much change you actually cause in your life without even thinking about it. It's the funniest thing. I had worked at a homeless shelter, and I remember noticing this kind of fine line between me and the folks that I worked with, and having a lot of respect for a lot of people. I met people with master's degrees, somebody with a doctorate, a number of college educated, and my friends would say, what's the reason? You're at the homeless shelter. What's the reason that people are there? There is no reason. And so after that question was asked, I got really intrigued. And every person I met, I noticed there was a number of things. Not one person had one thing that drove it. Mm-hmm. We might argue that somebody being an alcoholic didn't help their cause. Right. But we probably all know people with drinking issues or some sort of addictive process that they're living with their house, that they're not even going to lose their family over it. It seemed to be that there was a number of things that could happen, which kind of made me think, there might be a fine line between me and the person that I'm talking to. Maybe me, I'm an optimist. I said, okay, what am I going to do with this, right? So I take this idea of every year, at least once a year, I sit down and I look at like my physical health, my mental health, my relationship health, my relationship with myself. I'm a dad, so I always think about it's actually my spiritual health, my wife, my kids, and it's all in order, and my mental health's up there. I have an anxiety disorder, so I was kind of paying attention to that, and just looking at these different areas, and it was interesting, because one year I couldn't swim 50 meters in a pool, and I just rode triathlon. And it was almost like I dared myself, maybe somewhere back there. We call it setting the intention. You set the intention to do something, and it's interesting how often when you set that intention, you just put it out there, things can happen. I remember when you set the intention of this, of doing this.
And just really briefly, 30 years ago, Lisa and I had our first wine tasting experience, and for year after year, we said it would be great to retire into the wine business. And years ago, probably 10 years ago, Lisa, we did vision boards.
Yeah.
And we pulled them out not too long ago, and it was amazing. Similar to what you said about your goal list, these just little pictures about how many things we have accomplished without, stressing over it. It's just letting the universe take care of it, and it happens. But you have to be aware that things are happening around you. So many people are caught up in this fantasy world, in my opinion, about yesterday and tomorrow, and I wrote in my blog, those don't really exist. Today exists. This glass of wine in front of me exists. It's the only thing, right? Tomorrow may not happen. And I know that from personal experience with some health scares, that tomorrow almost didn't happen, and so, and yesterday I can't change, so I'm stuck with now. So, let's do it. Okay. So how can we bring mindfulness into our daily lives? Is there any magic trick or practices that we can do? Or
yeah, interestingly enough, one of the magic tricks is what you just said. Right? Like you said, you can't change the past, you can't change other people. Those two things we know, but you don't know what the future holds. You've got right now. And so making the most of right now. One thing that can be really helpful, like if we think of stress management, is taking a part of your life, maybe a part of your life that's stressful for you, like getting ready in the morning, or the bedtime routine. I have kids. Or maybe your commute to work, And you take that and you just try to be as present as you can. Maybe you do something funny, like when you're driving and you're in traffic, you just notice the vegetation, and this is kind of one where if you have little ones, they'll do that. Dad, I just counted 8 blue cars. Oh, you're doing something. I'm just gonna sit here thinking, when is this gonna be over? So I think that's something that we can think about as well, as like how in your routine you can really be in the moment. Maybe you're just kind of really paying attention to the idea of brushing your teeth, something that we would never pay attention to. And just think about what? Well, and one of the things that is a mindfulness concept is food is, as an example, typically used, or even wine. Maybe you could help me with this one more. And you could think about, I think mine's from Russian. Where's the petite Syrah from?
San Jose.
Okay. So you can think about how did that start? How did the dirt get to be the way that it was? And how did the plant grow from the dirt? And, how did the grapes come to be? And why did Darius pick them? What magic did he? And I got to see this. It was very interesting to watch the process. The grapes from the beginning to the fermentation process. And if you haven't gotten to see that, it's really interesting. And then it gets to be in our glass, and then it goes away.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really go away, right? Things don't go away. Things just kind of keep replenishing in our world. And it's this kind of interesting way to make us feel smaller in a way too, because we can feel like everything we do is a big deal. Or when something doesn't go our way, boy, the world might end. Or maybe it won't.
Right.
How many times is something, there are big things in our lives that don't go our way all the time. It's election season. I'm not gonna go there. But things, there's no way everything's gonna go your way during this time of year. And when you think about it though, you think about how small we are in that process, and how do we, continue to, well, it's funny because you again, use the research shows, but just that funny little thought of like just being in this moment right now, and just drinking this wine and thinking, man, isn't this cool that we all can share this space together and enjoy each other's company and be drinking a glass of wine and not be sitting in the middle of our stress. And what that does for us long term. And the research shows we're going to be happier, we're going to have better relations. Isn't that interesting? It's not rocket science, right? When you sit in here and think like, okay, that makes sense.
I remember years ago I was reading an article about Buddhist monks and how they would get beat because they would come up and the instructor would say, how many steps did it take you to get here? And if they didn't have an answer, they would be beat. Or how many petals were on the flower on the still, on the windowsill. And what they were stressing was pay attention to everything around you. Because that's the world, right? The world is everything. The colors, the shapes. And if you actually try to wrap your brain around trying to recognize everything around you, the smells, the sounds, the people, the names, the shapes, what you're wearing, what they're wearing, it blows your mind. Because that world is huge. And as Devin was saying, sometimes we live in our brains, we live in our heads. And we don't live in reality, we live in real realities out there.
And maybe we catch our breath in that moment. That's all we got. We can't control anything else, but we go,
Just relax.
It's kind of interesting.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. If somebody wants to talk to you more, how do they reach out to you?
So I left out some business cards, and then I left my phone number on the handout.
Okay.
So thank you so much. I wanted to share a quick quote if I could finish up. Remembering that there are times in our lives where we're going through change and there's so much can be going on and coming at us from different directions. And if we think about when the winds of change blow, some people build walls and others build windmills. So I challenge you today to build windmills.
Can you repeat that?
When the winds of change blow, some people build walls and others build windmills.
Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Hopefully you have a different appreciation for something new. And we're trying to continue this series, so if you have any ideas about topics that interest you or you think would be general purpose, or somebody that is an expert in some area, please send us an email, and we hope that you join us again. Thank you. So who meditates?